Morning, everyone. I'm Stephen Humphreys.
Hi, my name is Richard, and today we'll be talking about brand lift, what it is and how to best work with it. So before we start, let's go through the agenda and have a look at today's episode. So we're going to be touching upon three things. What is brand lift, how to set it up, and how to interpret the results. So let's start. So first of all, what is brand lift? So we're using brand lift to measure campaign effectiveness specifically on YouTube and looking at brand specific metrics such as ad recall, brand awareness, consideration, favorability, and purchase intent. We are also able to measure brand interest. And the two ways we do that is by using surveys and also looking at organic search activity on Google and YouTube. And the two things that we're trying to figure out is, for example, which demographic is driving the highest lift in brand awareness? Because before you can even think of trying to sell services or products to the users, they need to know that your brand even exists and what it does. And then we're also able to see things like, is this campaign inspiring consumers to search for a specific brand or products? So you've probably seen examples of brand lift before. As a measurement tool, it's been active since 2014. And how it works is before a video, you might see a brand lift survey instead of a TrueView skippable ad. And that might ask you a few questions. In this example, which of the following have you seen video advertising for recently? And then once this is served to a subset group of users, we try to get insights on how effective a campaign has been and try to interpret these results to then provide insights on further optimization or just general campaign effectiveness. So there's three key features for brand lift. So we can measure different metrics. So ad recall, do people even remember seeing the ad? Brand awareness, so do they know about your brand? Favorability, pretty self-explanatory, and consideration and purchase intent. So if we think about it from a funnel perspective, it's starting from upper funnel awareness all the way down to intent. Brand lift also has a robust design, so randomized experiments measuring casual effects of the actual presence of the YouTube campaign in control and exposed groups. And it's also fast and free, so you can know what the impact of the ad has had almost real time. And it also does not have any additional costs to this. So I'll pass it on to Stephen to explain a little bit more about how it works.
Cool. Thanks very much, Richard. So as Richard touched on there, brand lift's been around for about 5 years now, and we've taken on a lot of the feedback about what works well and what you guys would love to see improved. And we've kind of brought out this new product called Brand Lift 2.0, which works very similar, the exact same way as Brand Lift 1, but there's a few big iterations that we're going to talk through today. So there's 4 parts, so I'm going to deep dive in this. One is continuous brand lift, and the second is aggregated results across all your campaigns. And then we're going to talk about how easy it is to access for you guys. And then we're going to talk about some of the new KPIs that we've introduced as well that kind of tell us a bit more about the effectiveness of your campaign. So to start off with continuous brand lift, this was probably one of the big parts that was asked among the community about how we can iterate around brand lift. So with Brand Lift 2.0, you can now measure the entirety of your campaign. So previously with Brand Lift 1, that would only measure a few days, maybe first 4 or 5 days of your campaign. We know a lot of campaigns are a lot longer than that, and you need to know the effectiveness throughout it. So Brand Lift 2.0 now measures the entirety of this campaign. And because it measures the entirety of the campaign, we now collect a lot more survey responses. So that then means that the data we're reporting back to you guys is a lot more robust. And then this also allows us a platform to talk about max lift bidding, which is our kind of additional product where we can optimize towards consideration lift as well. So moving on as well, this is a kind of a snapshot of the interface. And so you might have many campaigns that you can put into one brand lift survey. So you might have an average 3, 4, 5 campaigns. You can now put that all into one survey and you can get aggregated reporting. So it will tell you what the overall is, but it will also tell you which campaign or line item in DV360 is doing the best for you. You can also then look at the specific slices, as Richard said, which demo is doing the best for us, which creative is doing the best for us as well. So you can get kind of hyper targeted upon what's working well for you and then optimize off the back of that as well.
And just to add to that, you can also measure the impact on your brand overall. So in this case, in this example, Google, or specific products and services. So you have a great tool to measure both.
Cool. And then easy access. So up until now, BrandLift 1 was always set up by your Google Account Manager, whereas now BrandLift 2.0, one of the main selling points is that it's externally accessible in Google Ads. One of the key pieces of feedback we got from everyone was we want to set it up ourselves. We want to be able to report on it ourselves. We want to be able to report back to our clients or our marketing manager on this as well. So to get set up, just get in touch with your Google Account Manager. They'll get you whitelisted, and within a couple of weeks, you will be ready to go. And it is simple to set up and report on, which we're going to touch on now shortly. So I hinted earlier, there's a few new KPIs we're talking about as well. So you have all the regular ones that you've previously seen. So your relative lift, your absolute lift. We've now expanded into a couple of new ones, a couple of new really important ones, is lifted users and the cost per lifting those users as well. So lifted users looks at the entirety of your campaign. So it talks about your reach and your absolute lift. So lifted users is equal to your unique reach times your absolute reach. And then the cost is the number of lifted users divided by the cost of your campaign. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it is a really, really effective metrics of telling you which campaign is doing the best and the effect it is having on your overall brand. So here's kind of a worked example as well. So campaign 1 and campaign 2, we spent the same amount of dollars with different CPMs of both, resulting in different levels of unique reach. So previously on BrandLift 1, we would have been talking about campaign 1 here. It's a 10% absolute lift compared to campaign 2, which is only 5%. That would have made sense to us that campaign 1 had done better. But actually now that we have these two additional metrics in lifted users and cost per lifted user, we're able to see the efficiency of it. So actually campaign 2, even though it didn't deliver the level of absolute lift, because it had a lower CPM and it reached a lot more people, it was actually able to lift a lot more users. So as I said previously, lifted users is unique reach times absolute lift. So 20,000 times 5%, it's 1,000 lifted users. And the cost per lifted user is only 10 cents compared to 15 cents on campaign 1. So adding in these two new metrics tells us a bit more about our campaign, and they're more of an efficiency play as well. Cool. So in terms of getting set up on BrandLift as well, so the budget requirement is going to differ per most markets. It's not going to be vastly different compared to what you've seen in BrandLift 1, but it will be a little different. Again, reach out to your account manager. As you said, it's measuring the entirety of the campaign as well. The two key metrics that we're going to look on going forward are lifted users and the cost per lifted user. The setup process is super simple within Google Ads. It's really intuitive, which we'll go through a little later on. And the results are populated in pretty much real time as well. So you can set it up today, get going, and within a couple of days, you're seeing stuff pull through directly into Google Ads. And then you can toggle the time range as well. So you can see, okay, how did it go in week 1 compared to week 2? Or you can look at the entirety of your campaign. And the KPIs, the two main KPIs, as I've said, is lifted users and cost per lifted users. But the usual suspects are still there: absolute lift, relative lift, and headroom lift as well. Cool. Now just passing back to Richard to talk about setup.
So as Stephen mentioned, setup is fairly simple. So we'll go through some of the basic steps. So once you have the functionality enabled in your account, you'll see a Labs tab on the left-hand side of the account. So you might find things like video sequencing experiments or brand lift measurement in this case. So you'd click there. And then you'll see lift measurement feature. So very simple, you'd click on that, and that opens up the setup process. So you'd have to click on the blue plus icon, and you enter details for your brand lift measurement. So things you would have to fill in is your product or brand name, competitor's product or brand names, and try to select the closest or most relevant competitors in your space. There's no point of picking massive brands, for example, that are working in totally different vertical. Then you can choose vertical or sub-vertical, and this allows somewhat customize the questions that you'll ask to the user. So instead of just simply asking which brand have you seen advertising for recently, it might specify which food brand have you seen advertising for recently. And then you can also specify language of the questionnaire. So, for example, if you're a brand in UK, but you're interested in expanding, for example, in Germany, you want to ask questions to the users in their local language. And then when you proceed to the next step, you'll select all auction video campaigns that are advertising the same product or brand. And then you can add them in a newly created product or brand grouping by just basically ticking a checkbox. So product or brand is made up of multiple campaigns advertising the same product brand that allow you to get aggregated reporting of brand lift metrics across campaigns. So in the reporting that we'll cover in a few moments, you'll be able to see either campaign-specific impact or impact overall across the account and campaigns. You can have multiple campaign types as well. So the most common that we see is TrueView and bumper campaigns in the same product and brand. You can create multiple products and brands as well if you have campaigns advertising different brands in the same account. But this will allow aggregation metrics for each product. You cannot have a campaign. You cannot have a campaign be part of two product brand studies, but you can always add new campaigns to a product or brand study itself. So, for example, if you have activity that you want to run throughout the year, you'll be able to add in new campaigns with either different level targeting or just clean setup that you can then all review in a later date. And then now to the reporting.
Cool. Thanks very much, Richard. Now to reporting. As Richard said, in the Labs tab in the bottom left-hand corner, Google Ads, you'll be able to see the advertised entities piece. This is our brand lift piece, or lift measurement as now referred to. So within there, you can kind of look at it by the exact brand level as well, and you can kind of customize the columns by hitting the customize columns feed. As I said, the main ones for us are going to be lifted users and cost per lifted user as well. So within here, you'll be able to look at both the table and what we call a card view. So table view is kind of what you saw on the previous slide, and the card view is a little bit more of a deep dive as well. So at the bottom here, you can click on more details, and we'll get into a bit more granularity per metric you're measuring as well. And oftentimes, users will say, why are we seeing no lift whatsoever? It's a common thing. We don't see lift in every single brand lift. It's never guaranteed or anything like that. So sometimes it might be, actually, we haven't received enough responses to be able to report on it. Most responses we need to hit about, or most surveys we're going to need to hit about 2,000 responses before we can statistically, the data is considered statistically significant to be reported on. We've now just added a feature in the last few days where it will say if that's the case or not. Otherwise, previously it was just a blank. So that's it. It's an improvement already. Why no lift is a really tricky question, and there might be lots of reasons for that. So I would reach out to your Google Account Manager, as we've seen quite a lot of these as well. And sometimes we can kind of tell you why that might be. One of the main ones as well is kind of sometimes your baseline level is very high. So if you think about something like maybe a brand like Nike and you're measuring awareness, pretty much everyone's aware of Nike. So even people in the control group, there's probably about 90% of people who are already aware of Nike. It's going to be really hard to get more people aware of Nike already. Whereas if you're talking about a brand new brand altogether, you've got really low baseline level awareness. It can be a lot easier to lift those users, and it can be a lot cheaper to do so as well, because you've a lot of headroom to move with. Yeah, so here's a couple of commonly asked questions as well. So if you've just started your campaign, you're probably going to need to wait for a few days as well. It will depend on the spend. As I said, once you get about 2,000 responses, you should start to see a bit of lift in different pockets, and it will get more robust over time as more surveys get sent to users as well. And then if you're not getting enough users, maybe consider expanding your target audience as well to increase the pool and get more people to answer those surveys for you. Cool. And here's another snapshot within the AdWords column as well. So not only do you see it within the Labs tab, but you can actually see it in the front end as well by customizing the columns. So if you have those 5 campaigns or however many number of campaigns you have in that survey, you can just customize columns and you can see the lift per campaign as well. So what a lot of my advertisers will use this for is they will have 5 different sets of targeting per campaign. And they will look at which cost per lifted user is driving the best one for them. That will allow them to optimize towards the rest of the campaign or for future campaigns as well. So one of the great things about brand lift is you can take the learnings and transfer them into your existing campaign or for future campaigns as well.
And just to add to that, so there's different segments that we can add these columns in, as we mentioned, ad groups, ads, extensions, audiences, but it's very important to have enough survey responses in each of these segments. So for example, if in total your campaign in let's say 2 weeks got about 6,000 responses, but for example, if you want a demographic breakdown, you would need that amount of responses for each one of the demographic groups to actually arrive at a significant result. You can still overview the total campaign lift as well, but the more granular you want the results, the more responses you need. But the good benefit about Brand Lift 2.0 is that it's a continuous study, and therefore we can provide a lot more survey responses to arrive at a more robust measurement.
Yeah, exactly. And another one we use a lot for is creative testing. So if we get a lot of survey responses, we will be able to see if there's different ads within the same campaign, which ad is actually driving the most. Is the 15-second one? Is the 30-second one? Whatever variation you have, you can tell, as long as Richard said, as long as you hit that threshold in terms of number of survey responses. So to just talk about the key takeaways today, Richard, main one for us is the much more powerful measurement. We're getting a lot more survey responses, meaning we can be a lot more robust in what we're reporting back to you.
And then also the ease of access. So users can set up the studies themselves in the way they prefer. And you can also then get the results a lot more faster than with the original Brand Lift. And at the same time, it's continuous. You can add more campaigns. So a lot of the restrictions that were there before, we've moved away from those and just made it easier to use. And
the setup process couldn't be much simpler. As long as you're set up with Brand Lift 2.0, you literally just navigate to the Labs tab, put in your brand, put in your competitors, put in your campaign, tell us what you want to measure, and it will start straight away. Reporting couldn't be simpler either. It can be accessed in the Labs tab or in the Campaigns tab just by customizing the columns. For us, the key ones to look for are lifted users and the cost per lifted user. Cost per lifted user tells us which campaign is most efficient for you in driving the metrics that matter to your business.
And just to add as well, it's a great way to also measure additional impact that your video campaigns might have. So when we're looking at formats like TrueView for Action, where you're looking for more direct response, it's great to also be able to measure what is the brand impact from these campaigns as well.
Cool. And to get started, simply get in touch with your Google Account Manager, tell them which account you want whitelisted, and they'll get it done. And within a couple of weeks, you'll be ready to go.
And for additional info, there's also Help Center articles that you can access now.
Cool.
Perfect. So thank you very much for joining us on today's Elevenses. And yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.